Welcome to the Playing Books podcast. Today, we're embarking on what I think is a really essential mission. We're doing a thorough exploration of the concepts, the stories, and the intensely practical applications you'll find in this book, Strength Finder 2.0 by Gallup. And look, this isn't just a book review. It's really about accessing a transformational framework, one that Gallup spent decades developing to completely redefine how you approach personal development and your professional success.
That's absolutely right. Our goal with this podcast is to, synthesize the core knowledge inside StrengthsFinder 2.0. We want to deliver a really comprehensive understanding of the 34 themes of talent, so you can fundamentally enhance your life by shifting your focus. Completely away from fixing what's broken and toward developing what is inherently strong in you. It's really a guide to finding the path of what they call the least resistance to achieving consistent, near-perfect performance.
And before we jump into the really startling research that underpins this whole approach, we have to pause just for a dedication moment. Because this entire paradigm, what we now call strength psychology, it owes its existence to one man, Dr. Donald O. Clifton. He lived from 1924 to 2003, and Gallup recognizes him as the father of strength psychology, just a truly trailblazing thinker and scientist. This book, the 2.0 version by Tom Rath, it builds directly on Clifton's foundational idea that our culture desperately needed a scientific language to describe what is right with people.
And the urgency for this new language is rooted in this fundamental massive organizational crisis, the engagement deficit. Gallup, through decades of research, has surveyed over 10 million people worldwide on employee engagement. That's their measure of how, positive, motivated, and productive people feel at work. And the result, it reveals a fundamental misalignment for most of us. Only about one-third, just one-third of those millions, strongly agree with this single, simple statement. At work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day.
Think about that statistic for a second. 2/3 of the working population feels like they spend most of their day doing things that are not their natural best. And for those who aren't in a position to focus on their strengths, the costs are staggering, and they extend far beyond, the company balance sheet. Gallup polled over 1,000 employees, and the ones who disagreed with that core statement that they get to use their strengths daily they were 6 times less likely to be engaged in their job.
And when you're operating outside your strength zone, the consequences are immediate. They're measurable. You don't just dread going to work. You achieve less every single day. You have more negative than positive interactions with your colleagues. You are more likely to treat customers poorly, and you spread this negative energy about your company. It really sets a challenging tone for this episode. What is the actual quantifiable cost of ignoring our best selves? And maybe more importantly, how quickly can you change that reality?
Okay, so to understand the power of this paradigm shift, we first need to look at the massive cultural default that Gallup identifies. And that is the detriment of weakness fixation. Our organizations, our schools, even our families, they are so often wired to identify and relentlessly try to fix deficits.
Exactly. Gallup explored this managerial behavior and its correlation with employee disengagement. That's that extreme negativity that just, festers in organizations.
Yeah.
And the findings completely changed the perspective on organizational health and how simple the fix might actually be. They compared the chances of an employee being actively disengaged, so we're talking miserable on the job, openly hostile, undermining colleagues, based on 3 very common managerial behaviors.
Okay, let's unpack this data because it addresses a fundamental human need, right? The need to be seen. So if your manager ignores you completely, the chances of you being actively disengaged are 40%.
40%. And if your manager does pay attention, but focuses primarily on your weaknesses, constantly giving you feedback on where you fell short, the chance of active disengagement drops, but only to 22%.
And here is where it gets really interesting. If your manager focuses primarily on your strengths, actively trying to find ways for you to use your natural talents more often, the chances of active disengagement plummet to just 1%.
That 40% figure is a punch to the gut. It shows that being completely ignored is actually the most detrimental thing a manager can do. But the real insight is that leap from 22% down to 1%. It confirms the core thesis. This epidemic of active disengagement, it isn't some incurable mystery. It's a curable disease that we can systematically eliminate just by helping people develop what they already do best.
And this brings us to the book's major cultural critique, which is this pervasive habit of overcoming deficits. The authors argue that, and I'm quoting here, From the cradle to the cubicle, we devote more time to our shortcomings than to our strengths.
Hmm.
And nothing illustrates this more clearly than the stories our culture chooses to celebrate.
The prime example, of course, is the famous true story of Rudy Rudiger, immortalized in that 1993 movie, Rudy. So here's a 23-year-old groundskeeper at Notre Dame. He desperately wants to play college football, but he's 5'6", 165 pounds. He just lacks the natural physical ability required for, big-time Division A football.
Right, but he had that famed ample heart. He worked tirelessly, was rejected 3 times, finally got accepted, and earned a spot on the practice squad. For 2 years, he was just battered daily, never saw real game action. Then in the final seconds of his senior year, because his teammates lobbied for him, he got 1 play, and he made 1 tackle. And just like that, he's an instant hero, carried off the field, a cultural icon of perseverance.
Now, the StrengthsFinder analysis of Rudy is, well, it's sober and necessary. While his perseverance is truly admirable, after thousands of hours of practicing a massive investment, he played for a few seconds and made a single tackle. The culture celebrates this triumph over a lack of natural ability. We treat it as the ideal path. But Rudy's story, when you view it through a strength lens, it promotes what the book calls the path of most resistance.
And this path is enshrined in what the authors call the misguided maxim. You can be anything you want to be if you just try hard enough. The author, Tom Raff, he uses his own story to drive this home. He embraced this maxim and practiced basketball 3 to 4 hours a day for 5 years, went to camps every summer, only to find he couldn't even make the junior varsity team.
It's a staggering cost, right? The cost of misaligned effort. And that cost only grows exponentially in adult life and in career hierarchies.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the star salesperson who has immense natural talent for closing deals and building rapport. They want to progress, so they read management books, they stay late, they try desperately to become a great sales manager, and a few years later, they've burned out, realizing they just lack the natural talent, the raw material, to develop and coach other people.
It's an issue that's deeply embedded in our organizational structures, too. Organizations often force people to move into management roles, which require completely different talents just to get a raise or some status. Instead of allowing for an entire successful career progression within the specific role where they naturally excel, we literally promote people out of their strength zone.
And this deficit fixation, this urge to fix, it starts so early. The research here is truly disheartening. In every culture Gallup studied, 77% of U.S. parents think that a student's lowest grades deserve the most time and attention. We literally reward a child's excellence with apathy, with less time spent, and we invest the maximum effort in the area where they're least likely to ever achieve greatness. I mean, if you perpetually struggled with numbers, no amount of tutoring is likely to make you a great financial analyst. We have to be honest about where natural talent begins and ends.
This realization brings us to the formal, scientific definition of strength. It's anchored by the wisdom of the management guru Peter Drucker, who said, "Most people think they know what they are good at. They are usually wrong. And yet, a person can perform only from strength."
Drucker's insight was really the spark for Don Clifton. Clifton realized in the mid-1960s that while there were countless languages for describing what's wrong with people, the DSM-IV in psychology being a prime example, there was no equivalent scientific language for talent. So in 1998, Gallup took on the task of developing this language. They analyzed over 100,000 talent-based interviews to find patterns and common themes, and this data-backed approach is what distinguishes StrengthsFinder.
And that leads us directly to the core scientific concept of the entire book, the strength formula. This is the recipe for consistently near-perfect performance. Its talent X investment is strength. Let's break down those components because I think they are often misunderstood.
Right. Talent is the core ingredient. It's defined as a natural way of thinking, feeling, or behaving. And crucially, the StrengthsFinder assessment measures this by timing your responses. You have just 20 seconds per item. That quick, instinctual response captures your most intense natural reactions, which the research shows are remarkably stable over time. There's a 23-year longitudinal study of 1,000 New Zealand children that proved that the personality observed at age 3 still showed remarkable similarity at age 26. Talent is that raw, stable, adult personality trait.
Then you add investment. This is everything you do after the talent is identified. It includes time spent practicing, developing your skills, the actual steps of performance, and building your knowledge base. The basic facts. Investment is the trainable, the acquired part of the equation. Knowledge and skills are easier to add than raw talent. They are the amplifiers.
And the result is strength, the ability to consistently provide near-perfect performance. Now, let's apply this math back to our cultural icon, Rudy. Rudy scored a perfect 5 on investment, right? He dedicated thousands of hours. But let's estimate his raw talent for division in football was only a 2. His maximum strength potential was only 10. 2 times 5 is 10, which netted him, basic competence.
Contrast that again with Joe Montana. If he scored a 5 on talent and a 5 on investment, he achieved a strength score of 25. The difference in raw performance is enormous. This is the critical, non-negotiable takeaway. Success doesn't just come from hard work. It comes from starting with dominant talent, because that raw talent acts as a massive multiplier for your investment. Investing in a 2 doesn't get you far. Investing in a 5 is how you achieve greatness.
And these natural talents, the way we instinctively think or feel, they group into common themes. So the talent of feeling compelled to share thoughts and create engaging word pictures, for example, that groups into the communication theme. Recognizing these 34 themes gives us that common language we were looking for, a way to discuss what we naturally do best.
Before we jump into the details of all 74 themes, which can feel a bit like, drinking from a fire hose if you don't have a map, we need to introduce the 4 primary domains that Gallup uses to categorize these talents. This gives us the necessary structure, the scaffolding, to understand the different flavors of strength.
That's crucial for clarity. These domains are not themes themselves, but they describe the utility or the function of the talent. So the first domain is executing. People high in these themes, they know how to make things happen. They're the ones who implement solutions and deliver results. They have the drive and the consistency to get things done. The second is influencing. These people take charge, they speak up, and they make sure their ideas are heard. They are the motivators and the commanders who push the team forward and win people over.
The third domain is relationship building. These people are the essential glue that hold the team together. They focus on trust, on empathy, and on making the group greater than the sum of its parts. They nurture and connect. And finally, the fourth is strategic thinking. These individuals absorb and analyze information, help the team make better decisions, and they're constantly looking ahead. They're the ones who keep the team focused on what could be, mapping out alternative scenarios. We'll be discussing themes within all 4 of these domains.
Okay, let's start our comprehensive deep dive into the language of strengths, beginning with the executing strengths. These are the talents focused on drive, consistency, and action. First up is achiever.
The achiever has this constant internal need for accomplishment. You feel as if every single day starts at 0. If a day, whether it's a work day or a vacation day, passes without some tangible accomplishment, there is a deep sense of dissatisfaction. This internal fire just pushes them to set the pace. I love the quote from Melanie Kay, the ER nurse, who just encapsulates this energy. She says, "I have to rack up points every day to feel successful. Today I've been here only half an hour, but I've probably racked up 30 points already." It's almost a gamified view of life, isn't it? I knew an achiever who kept a physical checklist for everything, from sending a critical email to running a successful meeting, just to feel that sense of forward motion.
And the action tip here is critical. You have to use this self-motivation to set challenging, tangible goals. Continuous education is often really appealing because it provides a new goal structure. However, the blind spot for achievers is severe. In their eagerness to rack up those points and move on, they can unintentionally skimp on quality. An achiever needs to partner with someone with a talent like, say, maximizer or deliberative to ensure the quality matches the quantity.
Next is discipline. This theme is all about the need for order, for routines, timelines, and precision. People with discipline crave structure to feel in control and minimize life's inherent messiness. They are phenomenal at breaking long-term projects into a series of specific, manageable short-term plans.
The practical application for discipline is to lean into organizing systems. So physical filing systems, digital databases, meticulously planned routines, to have a place for everything and everything in its place. This frees up mental energy. I knew a software engineer with high discipline who color-coded every single step of their code deployment process. The caveat: the unexpected is highly distressing for them. If a meeting goes off topic or a deadline shifts without notice, it throws them entirely off balance. They absolutely must partner with activators or adaptability themes to handle life's unavoidable chaos.
Moving to responsibility. This is more than just reliability. It's about taking psychological ownership for your commitments. You feel emotionally and personally bound to follow it through to completion, no matter the cost, because your integrity depends on it. Apologies aren't enough, excuses are unacceptable. This creates a reputation for utter dependability that's rooted in impeccable personal ethics.
The book shares this powerful anecdote of Harry B., an outplacement consultant, who quit his bank job because the president wanted to foreclose on a property without giving people full value. And Harry's response was that he couldn't separate his personal ethics from his business ethics. He prioritized his integrity, even if it meant taking a much lower-paying job. The advice for responsible people is vital. Be incredibly selective about what you volunteer for, because once you commit, that intense personal burden means you can easily take on far too much. Learn to say no or define the scope very narrowly from the start.
Okay, I have to interject here with a touch of skepticism, though. If someone's lowest talent is, say, responsibility, and they are just inherently flaky, can they truly build systems to compensate for that? Or will their low talent always sabotage them?
That's a fair challenge, and it goes right back to the strength formula. Talent times investment. If responsibility is a 1 out of 5 for you, even a perfect 5 in investment only yields a competence score of 5. So you can compensate to achieve basic functional competence, using a dozen different apps and external reminders, but you'll never achieve near-perfect performance in that area. That person should seek roles where follow-through is delegated to someone else, or the consequences of their flakiness are minimal. The goal isn't to become a great responsible person, it's to avoid being a disastrously irresponsible one.
That makes perfect sense. Now let's talk about activator. The core belief of the activator is that only action is real and leads to performance. Once a decision is made, action must commence immediately. They view action as the best device for learning. You try something, you look at the result, and then you learn the next step, rather than trying to plan for every single contingency.
Jane C., the Benedictine nun who decided suddenly to drill a gas well, she epitomizes this. When she was confronted with the high risks and costs, her only concern was, I want to know when I am going to hit the wall, and I need you to tell me how much it's going to hurt. Hardcore. She just needed the data on the consequence of the action, not permission to delay. The critical action tip for activators is to partner closely with people who have talents like focus, strategic, or analytical. They need that planning, direction, and risk assessment to prevent them from repeatedly running headfirst into walls unnecessarily.
And the final executing theme we'll cover in this block is focus. This is the ability to instinctively evaluate every opportunity or decision based on whether it moves you toward a clear goal. They filter out everything that doesn't align with their mission, which naturally leads to immense efficiency and impatience with tangents.
Nick H., the computer executive nicknamed the dentist, was famous for playing golf in 2.5 hours and running 15-minute division reviews. Everything extraneous was just removed. This dedication to purpose is invaluable. A crucial action tip is to give yourself explicit permission, and communicate this to your team, to reject projects or tasks that do not align with your central mission. The blind spot here is the inability to appreciate the value of peripheral vision. They can become so goal-oriented they miss entirely new, better opportunities that lie just outside their current tunnel vision.
Now let's transition into the relationship and influencing strengths, starting with connectedness. This is one of the more abstract themes, defined as the soul deep knowledge that we are all part of something larger, a collective unconscious, a spirit, a life force.
This confidence in shared humanity fosters a profound value system that's rooted in avoiding harm and seeking unity. It makes them natural bridge builders who see patterns of interdependency everywhere. Mandy M., the homemaker, captures this by saying she feels connected to life by simply giving thanks to the people who made her cereal. They literally feel the web of existence.
That's a powerful internal compass. An action tip here is to use this talent to actively break down organizational silos. You can be a leader in helping fragmented teams feel important by showing them how their individual efforts contribute to the larger, connected picture. They should explore global or cross-cultural responsibilities as their understanding of shared humanity transcends local boundaries.
Next up, empathy. This is the ability to sense the emotions of others as if they were your own, to see the world through their eyes. Empathy allows them to understand without necessarily agreeing or pitying or condoning choices, and often helps them hear unvoiced questions or anticipate subtle needs, finding the right words and tone where others might struggle.
Janet P., the school teacher, described intuiting momentum changes in a basketball game, literally feeling the energy and anxiety of the crowd shift. Empathy operates at scale, not just one-on-one. A practical action tip for empaths is crucial for sustainability. You have to create clear, end-of-day rituals to signal that work is over and to buffer against absorbing the emotions of others. Without this boundary, the high capacity to feel others' pain leads rapidly to emotional burnout.
Now, realtor. Unlike themes that focus on meeting new people, realtors gravitate toward people they already know. They need depth and trust in relationships. They believe trust is built by sharing and risking together, and they are highly selective initially. But once that initial threshold is crossed, they feel compelled to go deeper and deeper.
Jamie T., the entrepreneur who calls all 10 of his employees very good friends, noted that while he is selective initially, once that trust is met, he feels compelled to invest significantly. For realtors, the advice is kind of counterintuitive. You need to proactively put yourself out there to initiate relationship building. If you wait for others to sense your openness, you may miss opportunities. You have to risk sharing the more engaging aspects of your personality up front.
The developer theme focuses entirely on seeing potential in others. They find profound fulfillment in helping others grow and excel, recognizing small increments of growth as vital signs of potential being realized. They are natural coaches.
The story of the hospice worker helping the suicidal patient is a powerful illustration of this. When the patient felt she only had the energy to wash one bowl today, the hospice worker set the goal of two tomorrow. That's pure developer focusing on tiny, measurable growth to build confidence and potential. The important caveat for developers is this: avoid consistently supporting someone who is struggling in a role that fundamentally does not fit their talents. Sometimes the most developmental and kind action is encouraging them to find a completely different role, one that actually fits their core strengths better. Trying to fix a permanent misalignment just drains both the developer and the employee.
Moving to positivity. People with this theme are generous with praise, quick to smile, and always actively seeking the good. Their enthusiasm is highly contagious. They naturally inject drama and fun into projects, finding ways to lighten the mood for others.
Andy B., the executive, loved creating buzz about new ideas he encountered. Noting his passion made people trust him immediately. Their energy is just magnetic. An essential action tip is to plan highlight activities and celebrations for colleagues, leveraging that contagious energy. But positivity needs protection. They have to insulate themselves from chronic whiners and complainers, as that negativity will quickly sap their reserves. Their positive approach is most effective when it's honest, so they must acknowledge challenges while framing reasons for optimism.
And finally, for this block, woo, which is short for winning others over. Woos enjoy the challenge of meeting new people and getting them to like them. Strangers are energizing, and they thrive on breaking the ice and building quick rapport. The moment that connection is established, they are often happy to move on, seeking the next new encounter.
Deborah C., the executive, joking that all her taxi drivers proposed to her, illustrates that quick, charming engagement. And nurse Anna G. uses humor like telling a 10-year-old patient, "When I was your age, I was 11, to instantly put children at ease. The action tip for woos is to practice and refine those charm techniques, maybe researching people before meeting them to find common interests, maximizing the impact of those crucial first moments. Their blind spot, however, is that they can fail to invest in depth. Once the charm wears off, they have to ensure the quick rapport translates into lasting relationship value. That was a deep dive into the executing and relationship talents. Let's shift our focus now to the third and fourth domains: strategic thinking, which is about analysis and vision, and the directing navigating strengths, which includes command and self-assurance.
Absolutely. The strategic thinking domain is where the information gatherers, the pattern seekers, and the visionaries reside. We start with analytical.
The analytical talent is objective and often dispassionate. They insist that theories must be proven sound, and they love data because it's value-free. It holds no personal agenda. They are masters at peeling back layers until the root cause or pattern is revealed, often coming across as rigorously, relentlessly logical.
Jack T., the HR executive, demonstrates this perfectly by confronting broad salary claims. He doesn't accept the claim until he asks rigorous follow-up questions about geography, company type, and sample size to ensure the claim is a fact, not just one misleading data point. The practical application is clear. Choose work where you are explicitly paid to analyze data, like research, risk management, or complex editing. The key communication tip: analyticals must actively help others realize their skepticism is directed primarily at the data and the logic, not at the people presenting it, to prevent being mislabeled as cynical or distrustful.
Next up, context. People with context look back to understand the present. They instinctively cast their minds back to the blueprints of earlier, simpler times to regain stability and make better decisions today. They believe the past is the best predictor of the future.
Greg H., an accounting manager, successfully moved his office to a new accounting system only because he honored their past. He understood that people had deep personal identification with the old system, and he had to respect that history to gain emotional engagement with the change. The actionable strategy for context is vital. You have to partner with someone with strong, futuristic, or strategic talents. This pairing ensures that their reverence for the past is balanced with clear vision and planning for the future, preventing stagnation.
Now, ideation. People with this talent are thrilled by new ideas, whether they're profound, novel, clarifying, or just bizarre. They are constantly making connections between disparate things, and the discovery of a fresh idea gives them a powerful jolt of energy.
Mark B., the writer, illustrates this connective ability by linking camera flashes at the Mona Lisa, no flash signs, and historical thefts to formulate the idea that the Mona Lisa on display might be a fake. The power comes from synthesizing stored, disparate images and facts. For ideators, the advice is to intentionally schedule time to read widely and think deeply, fueling the raw material for their ideas. And they must partner with analytical talents who can rigorously challenge their ideas, ensuring they are not just novel, but also practical and sound.
Moving on to the inquisitive collectors. Input. People with input collect things, whether it's information, words, facts, books, quotations, or tangible objects. They collect because the item interests them and might be useful someday. They harbor a deep dislike for wasting accumulated knowledge.
Kevin F., the salesperson, loves playing Jeopardy and Trivial Pursuit because it directly leverages the garbage or raw data he has collected in his mind. The central dilemma for input is that collection often far outweighs utility, leading to digital hoarding or overwhelming physical clutter. The advice is strict. Devise a system, a searchable file or database, to store and easily locate information. And the crucial caveat: input without output leads to stagnation. They must be intentional about creating opportunities to share the knowledge they gather, whether through writing, teaching, or presenting.
The intellection theme is characterized by a significant need for mental activity. They deeply enjoy solitude, using time alone to allow a diffused focus to just simmer and perk, facilitating reflection and integration of thoughts.
Lauren H., the project manager, described needing solitude, even though she was an extrovert, explaining she needed time to let her ideas perk before they were ready. For intellection, the actionable step is non-negotiable. Schedule specific time for thinking and writing to crystallize and integrate thoughts. They often raise very provocative questions, which is why they should channel that curiosity to those who enjoy intellectual debate, recognizing that others may find their constant questioning intimidating or paralyzing.
Then we have the learner. This theme denotes a strong desire to continuously learn and improve, valuing the process of moving from novice to expert much more than they value the final outcome or the status achieved. They literally feel restless or antsy when they are not actively learning something new.
Annie M., the managing editor, perfectly illustrates this restless pursuit by taking up tap dancing, simply to satisfy her need for technical learning and the satisfaction of moving from a beginner to an intermediate class. The desire for growth is relentless. Learners should seek roles that require constantly changing technologies, evolving regulations, or roles that require technical competence, ensuring they are always moving toward a new level of mastery. Their biggest blind spot is that they might jump ship just as a project reaches completion because the learning has plateaued.
The maximizer theme shifts the focus entirely toward excellence, not average. They are compelled to nurture, refine, and stretch strengths toward superb performance. They're focused on polishing the pearl. They find transforming something strong into something superb thrilling, but fixing something below average is unrewarding and a waste of time.
Amy T., an editor, hated fixing poorly written pieces, but loved taking a close piece and refining it to make it perfect. Maximizers are intensely discriminating. The essential advice: study success and deliberately spend time with people who have cultivated their strengths. They must actively avoid those who try to fix them or make them well-rounded, as they know that mediocrity is the inevitable result of focusing on their weaknesses.
Next is strategic. This is a distinct way of thinking that allows them to see patterns in complexity and play out alternative scenarios, constantly asking, what if this happened? This perspective helps them find the best route by evaluating potential obstacles and roadblocks around the corner, often anticipating 5 steps ahead.
Simon T., the executive, who predicted an opponent's moves like tacking in a sailboat, planning and reacting to counter the strategy, shows this talent in action. Strategic thinkers are invaluable in the initial planning phase of any new initiative. The critical caveat, however, is that they need to ensure they point out not only the obstacle, but also a concrete way to prevent or overcome it. If they only point out potential issues, they will inevitably be perceived as negative or resistant to change.
Now let's move into the final major grouping, the directing and navigating strengths, starting with command. People with command take charge and feel absolutely no discomfort imposing their views on others. They see confrontation not as something painful to avoid, but as the first necessary step toward resolution. They are compelled to present the facts or the truth clearly, no matter how unpleasant.
Malcolm M., the manager, describes being so candid that people find him intimidating at first, but his clarity and honesty eventually win them over. Command talents are crucial in a crisis, as illustrated by Diane N., the hospice worker, who must take charge and provide necessary clarity and honesty to grieving families who are confused and in shock. The key advice is training. They must practice techniques, conscious choices about words and tone that transform their ability to confront into genuine persuasiveness, leveraging their take-charge attitude with diplomacy.
Now for deliberative. These individuals are cautious, vigilant, and intensely serious, instinctively assessing risk and walking with great care. They focus on reducing the number of variables in a situation to feel secure, providing necessary thoughtfulness, and ensuring that action taken is robust and sustainable.
Brian B., the school administrator, refused to show his Safe Schools plan until he was comfortable with the basic model, knowing that the care he takes now pays big dividends later because once the decision is made, it stays made. They need to proactively explain their careful decision-making process, that they highlight risk explicitly to take control of it and reduce it. If they don't explain this, they risk being misperceived as tentative, slow, or fearful of action.
And finally, in this core group, self-assurance. This is confidence in your own ability and judgment, an inner compass that keeps you on course. Their gut feeling is final, loud, and highly persuasive. They trust their instincts implicitly and do not need external validation.
Cam D., who decided to change schools at age 5 purely because she liked the idea of meeting new people, shows that unwavering trust in inner judgment. Deborah C., the ER nurse, used her absolute confidence to calm a psychotic patient by leading her in a Jewish prayer, a decision made entirely on gut instinct. Self-assurance is critical in startup situations or leadership roles where constant, fast decision-making is required and there is no existing rule book to rely on.
So we've covered a large amount of ground. But to provide a really comprehensive view of all 34 themes, we need to bring in the remaining talents, many of which don't fit neatly into the previous domains, but they're equally vital. These are the unique identifiers that truly flesh out the language of strengths.
Exactly. Let's start with a ranger. Arrangers are the conductors of complexity. When they're faced with numerous moving parts, people, variables, resources, they enjoy managing and aligning and realigning them until they find the most productive configuration possible.
Sarah P., a finance executive, noted that when faced with a complex situation involving 30 variables, she only sees about 3 viable options, making the decision process remarkably easier for her and getting things done faster than others who struggle to balance everything. Arrangers should seek complex, dynamic environments with few routines and focus on project management or scheduling. Their blind spot. They can move people and resources around so quickly in the pursuit of efficiency that they fail to communicate the why, leaving others feeling like pawns on a chessboard.
Then there is belief. This theme is characterized by enduring core values. They are often family-oriented, altruistic, spiritual, valuing high ethics and responsibility. Their work must be meaningful and mesh with these values. A job is a vocation.
Tracy D., an airline executive, finds purpose in making flying safer, stating that without that fundamental purpose, she couldn't motivate herself to work through challenges. The advice for people high in belief is to actively seek roles that fit those deep-seated values. The meaning and purpose will provide direction and sustain them through the toughest challenges. A typical caveat is that if they feel their values are compromised, they will exit a job or relationship abruptly and without regret.
We also have competition. This is distinct from achiever. The achiever competes against a self-imposed standard, but the competitor needs other people to compare against, because winning, relative to others, is the ultimate goal. They measure progress by outselling, outperforming, or outranking their peers.
Sumner Redstone, the chairman of Viacom, famously spoke about relishing the fight for control of his company, stating, "Wrestling control of a company like Viacom was warfare, viewing business as a competitive sport. Competitors must select work environments where they can easily measure their achievements against a peer group and where wins are celebrated publicly. Their challenge is maintaining healthy relationships. They must learn to celebrate the success of others, even if it momentarily pulls them out of first place."
And what about communication? This theme is characterized by hunting for the perfect phrase, crafting dramatic word pictures, and developing stories that capture attention and inspire action. They turn ideas into events.
Sheila Kay, a general manager of a theme park, uses vivid personal stories, like the World War II veteran she saw at the flag-raising ceremony, to show her executive committee the powerful emotional impact they have on guests. The advice for communicators is twofold. Constantly practice refined stories and develop deep knowledge in specific areas. They cannot rely on talent alone for substance. The blind spot is that they can sometimes prioritize style over substance, spinning tales that are engaging but ultimately lack the necessary detail or action steps.
We also have consistency. This is the need to treat everyone the same, believing people function best in a consistent environment where rules are clear and applied equally. They are fundamentally anti-elitist and value predictable behavior and universal standards.
Jamie Kay, a magazine editor, roots for the underdog and plans to set up a scholarship so journalism students of limited means can get a fair shot, a direct result of her need for fairness. The challenge for consistency is that they must partner with maximizers or individualizers to remind them when it is appropriate to accommodate genuine individual differences. They must avoid insisting on uniform steps that might ignore overall excellence or unique talent.
Let's also look at the themes focused on engaging with people, like Includer. They instinctively want to draw people in so they feel the warmth and security of the group. They are deeply accepting, regardless of background, believing we are all fundamentally the same and no one should be ignored or left marginalized.
Corporate trainer Giles D. senses instantly when someone is disengaging in a discussion and immediately draws them back in. Includers should look for opportunities to bring together diverse cultures and backgrounds and serve as spokespeople for unheard voices. However, includers must guard against letting their desire for inclusivity outweigh the need for high standards. Sometimes, removing someone who is actively disrupting the group is necessary, and includers can struggle with that confrontation.
And finally, a theme like individualization. This is the capacity to see the unique qualities of each person. They are intrigued by the combination of talents, skills, and experiences that make each person special, and they customize their approach to maximize others' unique potential.
The manager with high individualization would never give the same project to two different people because they know the way those people work is fundamentally different. This makes them exceptional selectors of talent and coaches. They should seek roles in coaching, team leadership, or human resources. Their blind spot is efficiency. Customizing every interaction takes time, and they can sometimes be accused of spending too much effort understanding individuals instead of pushing the group toward a unified goal.
And we must mention restorative. Their motto is, things break, and they enjoy fixing them. They are energized by devising plans of attack to revitalize flagging projects, organizations, or even people. They love diagnosing the problem.
Jan Kay, an internist, loved trauma and surgery because she loved fixing things, but also found reward in helping a dying patient transition from anger to acceptance, restoring their peace. Restorative individuals should seek roles that require constantly enhancing their diagnostic abilities through demanding fields, but they must also watch out for rushing in to solve problems for others, which can hinder others' learning and development. They need to let people struggle enough to learn. So we've thoroughly covered the 34 themes, demonstrating that talent is stable and acts as a multiplier. But now that you have this language, what is the path forward? It is not enough to just celebrate your top 5. You must also face reality, managing weaknesses and blind spots.
That's the necessary balance that the book provides. It reinforces that knowing your areas of lesser talent is incredibly helpful, especially if your job demands pull you into those areas, leading inevitably to weakness. Simple awareness can help you avoid major roadblocks. For instance, if you know you lack the talent for discipline, you must actively invest in external systems apps, PAs, meticulous calendar blocking to compensate rather than trying to become naturally ordered.
And as we touched on earlier, caution is required because talents, when they're overused or applied incorrectly, can create severe blind spots and derail pursuits. We need to introduce a healthy skepticism here. If you have overwhelming command, you might push through necessary changes, but not realize the damage left in your wake, the damage to relationships that you'll need later. If you are extremely high in consistency, you might stifle innovation by demanding everyone follow the exact same procedure, regardless of whether that procedure is best for the goal.
This is why the application phase of this system is so critical. The power of StrengthsFinder 2.0 lies in application, which is why the book provides 10 ideas for action for each theme. These ideas specifically guide you to leverage the talent while actively watching out for these pitfalls and blind spots. It's all about self-regulation informed by self-knowledge.
This entire discussion about talent, effort, and fit circles back to a profound story that illustrates the cost of misalignment, which is, the ultimate price of ignoring your strengths. It's the story of the man who died and asked St. Peter who the greatest general of all time was.
And St. Peter pointed across the way to a common laborer standing nearby. The man, utterly confused, said, "You must be mistaken. I knew that man on earth, and he was just a common laborer of digging ditches."
And St. Peter delivered the punchline. That's right, my friend. He would have been the greatest general of all time if he had been a general.
This story, though it's simple, it illustrates a devastating truth. Far too many people spend a lifetime headed in the wrong direction, going from the cradle to the cubicle and then to the casket, without ever uncovering their greatest talents and true potential. This is why active participation from you, the listener, is so crucial. Now that you've heard the framework, the domains, and these detailed themes, you have a responsibility to yourself and to those around you. It is essential not only to discover and develop your strengths as early as possible, but also to actively help others, colleagues, friends, children build on theirs.
To truly begin this journey of self-discovery, you need access to the StrengthsFinder 2.0 application. This is not just a book, it's a package for transformation. The book includes a unique access code for the new and upgraded StrengthsFinder assessment, the only way to scientifically identify your dominant talents.
And that access code grants you so much more than just a score. You get a personalized strengths discovery and action planning guide, giving you steps for applying your strengths immediately. You receive a customized top 5 theme report, and critically, 50 ideas for Action 10 strategies for building on each of your top 5 themes and watching out for those blind spots.
The technical access requires you to log on to www.strengthsfinder.com and use the unique access code in the packet included with the book. We have to stress this, as the code is valid for one user only, so do not buy the book if the packet has been opened. The assessment is the necessary first step to move from theoretical knowledge to practical application. As we wrap up this podcast episode, we challenge you directly to let the book's ideas enhance your life and your work. Remember the formula. Relying on your natural talents is the path of least resistance to greatness and the only way to achieve consistent, near-perfect performance.
Start the application phase of strength psychology today. Begin aligning your job, your hobbies, and your personal goals with your natural talents. This knowledge is only powerful if you put it into action.
Thank you for joining this special episode of the Playing Books podcast. Call to Action 1. If you want to take the first critical step toward transforming your potential, we strongly encourage you to purchase this book, StrengthsFinder 2.0 by Gallup. That unique access code for the assessment and the personalized guides are absolutely essential to truly begin this journey.
Call to Action 2. To follow up on the research and programs that underpin this methodology, we recommend visiting the links provided in the book, such as sf2.strengthsfinder.com research. We also encourage you to engage with author Tom Rath on social media to continue the conversation about strength psychology and its latest developments.
Call to Action 3. Finally, if you found value in this deep exploration of human potential, please follow, subscribe, and share the Playing Books podcast with others who seek knowledge and insight into how to live their best lives and maximize their contribution.
And here is a final provocative thought for you to chew on. If we know that not being in the strength zone means you are 6 times less likely to be engaged at work, dread going to work, and achieve less daily, what measurable, tangible investment will you make this week to ensure you move closer to working in your strength zone? And how will you measure that shift? Think action, not just intention.